Welcome to today's explainer. Crowns, castles, the whole divine right thing. We usually think of European royalty and picture nobility, tradition, and national pride, right? But when we actually peel back that gilded facade, digging into the historical archives and newly declassified docs, wow, it's a completely different reality behind those palace doors. Today, we're looking at how the intense pressure to keep that royal privilege intact has led to, quite literally, some of the most shocking cover-ups in human history.
So, what happens when absolute power meets absolute secrecy? It's a massive question. And as we dig through centuries of historical receipts, the answer we find is honestly pretty chilling. Because when an institution's #1 goal is just to protect itself at all costs, the human toll can be absolutely catastrophic.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the systemic nature of that gilded facade, then move into the biological nightmare of the Habsburg genetic time bomb. After that, we'll examine Leopold's reign of terror, uncover the Nazi puppet king plot, and finally, we'll wrap up with a modern royal moral crisis.
Section 1. Behind the gilded facade. Basically, every single era of European monarchy has aggressively maintained an official narrative to hide some much darker realities.
Just looking at this timeline as our roadmap, tracking events from 1665 in Habsburg Spain to 1908 in the Congo to 1940, all the way to modern-day Norway in 2026, it really illustrates that these abuses of privilege aren't just some Dark Ages phenomenon. It's a persistent, systemic issue. Across 4 centuries, we see these institutions prioritizing their own survival over the truth. Section 2. The Habsburg Genetic Time Bomb. Let's travel back to 17th century Spain for our first case of a catastrophic royal secret.
Okay, so the public royal bulletins of the time presented King Charles II as this figure of robust health, endowed with the divine right to rule. Classic PR, right? But the private medical reality? It was devastating. Charles actually suffered from severe physical deformities and cognitive impairment. He could barely even choose solid food, yet he was supposedly commanding a global empire.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this wasn't just some tragic, random accident. It was a deliberate matrimonial strategy. For 200 years, the Habsburg dynasty used a strict policy of cousin marriage just to keep power concentrated. I mean, Charles's parents were actually uncle and niece. Because of this intensely circular family tree, the dynasty essentially orchestrated a slow-motion biological catastrophe against itself.
And the reality of this was totally undeniable upon his death in 1700. The doctor's findings from his autopsy act as brutal historical receipts. They noted that inside the corpse, they found organs so malformed, so impossibly twisted, that one doctor reportedly fainted. It's wild to think about the incredible lengths a royal court will go to just to maintain a facade.
Moving on to Section 3, Leopold's Reign of Terror. Let's shift our timeline up to 1908, moving from a biological tragedy to a massive humanitarian one.
We see the exact same pattern repeating here. On the surface, King Leopold II of Belgium created the International African Society. It was pitched as a noble, philanthropic effort to end the slave trade. But the private reality? He used that front to seize 905,000 square miles of African rainforest, turning it into a personal fiefdom for the ruthless extraction of rubber and ivory.
10 to 15 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That is the estimated number of Congolese lives lost to murder, starvation, and disease during Leopold's 22-year exploitation. It is the devastating real-world cost of his private enterprise operating behind a veil of philanthropy.
And these horrors were dictated straight from the top. When his forces failed to meet those impossible rubber quotas, King Leopold literally commanded his generals to cut off the heads of the men and hang them in the villages, have sexual intercourse with the native women, and hang children and women on crosses. This objective, documented reality of the atrocities is what finally forced the Belgian government to step in and annex the Congo in 1908.
Section 4. The Nazi Puppet King Plot. Fast-forwarding now to July 1940 to uncover a seriously chilling political plot involving the abdicated King Edward VIII.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Basically, the German SS meticulously orchestrated what they called Operation Willy. Step 1. Entice the Duke of Windsor, who already had documented sympathies for fascist economic policies, to neutral Spain. Step 2. Stage fake assassination threats and blame British intelligence. Step 3. Detain him in neutral territory. And Step 4. Reinstall him as a fascist puppet king following a projected German conquest of the UK. So, how did the Duke and Wallis Simpson actually react to this? Well, the recovered Marburg files contain a super revealing telegram from a German agent. When the agent floated the idea that, quote, the course of war may produce changes even in the British Constitution, the Duchess in particular became very thoughtful. It is a chilling reminder of just how close the monarchy came to being fully leveraged by the Nazi regime.
Section 5. A modern royal moral crisis. Let's bring the timeline right up to the present day, 2026, and examine the Norwegian monarchy's struggle with secrecy.
Just like with the Habsburgs and Leopold, there is a massive gap here between the official palace story and the facts. After the arrest of American sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, the Norwegian royal palace put out an official narrative. They claimed Crown Princess Mette Marit broke off contact with him in 2013, and that their meetings were mostly just by chance. But the documented truth from the newly released 2026 Epstein files tells a completely different story. It shows secret emails continuing well into 2014 and coordinated multi-day stays at his Palm Beach mansion.
And the files show she knew exactly who she was dealing with. There's an email sent by Mette Marit to Epstein in 2011 that literally reads, "Googled us after last email. Agree, didn't look too good. Smiley face." His status as a convicted sex offender was the top search result, yet she continued this intimate correspondence for years, even suggesting women for him to meet and asking about his private island.
You know, the correspondence also reveals a really stark disconnect between her royal duties and her private sentiments. In 2012, while she was officially representing the Norwegian royal family at a wedding in Luxembourg, she sent this email to Epstein. "At boring party, come save us. I'm dying of boredom." It really highlights the incredible irony of a future queen complaining about royal duties to a convicted criminal.
And the real-world fallout from this has been incredibly swift. By February 2026, polling numbers showed only 28.9% of Norwegians supported Mette Marit as a future queen. Nearly half the country now believes she shouldn't take the throne at all. It's a perfect illustration of how fast public trust shatters when that official facade drops.
So right now, with the royal palace refusing to answer detailed questions about the discrepancies in their earlier statements, the consequences are escalating fast. Multiple organizations have completely severed ties with her, and this whole situation has even sparked formal calls within the Norwegian parliament to abolish the monarchy entirely. Which really brings us back to our initial question. Is the ultimate cost of a crown the loss of humanity? From the slow-motion genetic destruction of the Habsburgs to the unimaginable atrocities in the Congo, secret Nazi plots, and today's modern moral crises, we've seen the desperate, sometimes horrifying measures taken to protect the institution. So does absolute royal privilege inevitably corrupt? And what does that mean for how we should view these untouchable institutions today? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.